Welcome to the follow-up webinar on COVID-19 vaccine. Today we are going to talk about what is next after you are vaccinated. Some of you have already received both the doses of your vaccine, or you may be in line with receiving the vaccine. Let's start with this cartoon where you can see that the air can still leak out of the mask and can travel 3 feet distance in about 10 seconds. This is how then the virus spreads in the body, and this cartoon here is a picture of when all these people in brown have been vaccinated. The people in green, they are healthy but not vaccinated, and these people in purple are sick and not vaccinated. And still, this is called the herd immunity concept. That means if 70 to 80% of the population is vaccinated, even some of these people who are not vaccinated, they are protected from the disease. So who is going to receive the vaccine? What's the priority? So because the vaccines are available in the limited supply, the epidemiologists decided that healthcare workers, because they are exposed, in addition they are providing care to the patient, get the priority. Then the residents and staff of the long-term care facilities will receive the vaccine because they are the high-risk group and are the epicenter of the COVID-19 infection, and the first responders in the emergency department or EMS, etc. And then people who are at significantly high risk of COVID-19 illness, many of these people will be elderly and who have comorbid conditions that will require them to get the vaccine. And then people in critical essential infrastructure roles, without who the systems will not work. And then people at moderate risk for COVID-19 illness, and then it will come to the general population. The anticipation is the way things are changing rapidly by the day, that by June or early July, majority of the population which desires to receive this vaccine will receive the vaccine. Manufacturers are working and producing the vaccine in large quantities, and they are scaling up and they are shipping it very, very quickly. Once it arrives, we did experience some difficulty in stocking of the vaccination, but now it is all worked out. And it also depends on how quickly they can receive the material for preparing the vaccine. So that supply chain has to be working very, very well. What's the efficacy of the vaccine in general population? It has provided, according to the studies, very strong protection against the virus, but still there is a chance even after vaccination one can get the virus. Now, how significant that infection would be remains to be seen. It does take time for offering the protection, and there is no perfect vaccine. Having said that, the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine have beat all the odds, and they are 95% and 94% effective, respectively. It does take several weeks for the body to start building the immune system, and while the immune system is building, one could get sick with the virus either just before receiving the vaccine or just after receiving the vaccination. So what does it mean when you hear it's 95% and 94% efficacious? So let's see these 5 people receive the vaccine. And if the vaccine is 80%, that means 1 in 5 or 2 in 10 will not be vaccinated or will not be covered. But the vaccine has ability to prevent the infection out of these 5 people, in these 4 people, and only 1 is still at risk, and this will be considered that vaccine is 80% efficacious. If you compare it to these 5 people who did not receive the vaccine, they are all exposed and at risk for infection. So this is the efficacy of the vaccine. How long this vaccine is going to last? Do I need it every year or every 10 years or never after first dose? There is no clear information at this time. The SARS-CoV-2 virus was discovered at the end of the 2019, as we all know. And the Moderna and Pfizer clinical trials, another clinical trials started around the end of July 2020. So it's been over 6 months now, and the vaccines in those 6 months have shown long lasting protection. So we know these patients are being, and the research subjects have been followed, so they still have the protection, and I'm hoping that we'll continue to see this protection as we proceed and the time passes. Actual length of time is still unknown. There are continued monitoring, so we'll talk about that in order to understand the long-term immunity and how long the vaccine is going to be efficacious. There are at least two organizations right now. One is called the Triangle Contract Research Organization. These are the organizations which are independent research bodies and do the research, and Duke Clinical Research Institute. The current vaccine companies have hired these contractors and are studying the long-term effect of the COVID-19 vaccine. In addition, there is something called HERO project, which stands for Healthcare Worker Exposure Response and Outcomes. They are enrolling 20,000 healthcare workers who have already received the vaccine, and one of the subject in that study they will be followed for 2 years for any health issues that might come up or unexpected medical care that can occur or needed during this two-year study period. And this is routine. So this is, in real world, safety studies are routine as new therapies, new vaccine, new drugs come into the market and they receive authorization. They are continued to be monitored. We call them phase 4 trials or after marketing trials. How often we are going to get the vaccine? As I said that the emergency use authorization was granted in December. So we are going forward now to see that how long the immunity will last. But if we go backwards in retrospect from July to December, we notice that yes, clearly we are good for 6 months. Clinical trial subjects who participated in the early trial, there are about, I want to say close to 50 to 70,000 people. They are still being monitored. Here we have a little twist that if the virus is going to change, and just like in case of flu vaccine, every year the CDC designs by anticipating what kind of changes flu virus is going to come up with this year, and then the vaccine is designed, and that's how we get the new vaccine every year. Right now, although there is some discussion, we'll talk about it, but there is no such a strain in terms of the COVID-19 that will require a new vaccine every year. We already know that lasting immunity is almost 180 days, which is 6 months. We talked about it. And then we will learn more about as the time passes. So if the immunity is good for 5 years, we have to live 5 years. The time of 5 years has to pass to prove that point. What if somebody had a COVID-19 infection already, and should they get the vaccine? Yes, current recommendation is that they should still get the vaccine, because the natural infection that people are getting out of the virus, it only gives some degree of immunity. It does not cover everything. And vaccines are particularly created to neutralize the virus and neutralize its ability to infect. So there are reports of COVID-19 disease being developed for the second time in some people, and that also calls for vaccination. After the vaccine, repeat infection of COVID-19 is greatly reduced, that we know from the trials. And how the vaccine helps is that there is vulnerable high-risk population, which may be either because of their medical conditions or socioeconomic condition, inability to have social distancing. They are at high risk, and those will be benefited from getting a second infection. What's the current status of the double-blind vaccine trial? So we started these, what we call is this state-of-the-art, the best statistical study that the data that we can get out of these studies are called the double-blind vaccine trials. Pfizer vaccine trial had 37,000 participants to start with, increased to 44, and majority of them are here in the United States. About half of them received the vaccine, other half received the placebo, and they were able to collect enough data for the emergency use authorization from FDA, as we all know. But these trials are still continuing, and we will learn about that. So these new findings, hopefully there will be no change. This is what I expect, because change will be detrimental. The original participants are still in the trials. They will also look at the long-term monitoring of the side effect of the vaccine in the original group of people, while they are adding more new people. Many of the steps, administrative steps, let's say system steps, they were all curtailed short, but the scientific steps were not compromised. So scientific integrity of the vaccine is clear, and vaccine studies will continue to gather more ongoing data. So we have a safety or sense of safety with this vaccine. How about the pregnancy and vaccination? Because pregnancy is reality. A lot of people are pregnant at a given time in the world. But unfortunately, COVID-19 vaccine, just like many trials, did not include the pregnant people. And there is a general reluctance in the clinical trials for the fear of threatening a pregnancy or something bad will happen. So we do not have many trials go by, and we do not have any data on pregnant people. American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology insisted that they advocate that pregnant people should be included in the initial trials. There are, however, animal development and reproductive toxic studies called the DART are ongoing, and very soon they are planning the human studies in pregnancy for the vaccination. Despite the absence of data, let's look at this. It was very amazed. I was impressed that how some of these pregnant women have set an example. Let's look at the situation. 75% of the healthcare workers are women. That's a lot of women there. And out of that, 330,000 of these women are expected to be pregnant or postpartum at a given time. They are in their reproductive years, they have families, and they are pregnant, or they just had the baby delivered. The ACOG, American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, recommended to allow the pregnant and lactating mothers in priority vaccination group. So not only they say they should be allowed to participate in the research trials, but also they are putting them into the priority group for vaccination, and to get the vaccine as soon as it becomes available. And or the other choice is definitely wait until more information is available. Pfizer and Moderna vaccine are mRNA vaccines, genetic vaccine, and they do not contain the live virus, which historically we used to have. This is the first time that we are seeing the genetic development of the vaccine with the messenger RNA technology. So it cannot give, it's medically not possible to give COVID-19 disease by way of vaccination to anyone. The COVID-19 patients, if somebody is pregnant and they got COVID-19, there is about 50% chance that they will be symptomatic and will have problems. Well, what are the symptoms? Cough, fever, and worse is the hypoxemia, lack of oxygen. Well, fetus needs oxygen every second in order for their growth. So you can imagine. And some of these hospitalized patients can become very symptomatic and end up in the intensive care unit, or be supported on the mechanical ventilation, or even die. They need to follow the mitigation strategies, just like described before, for everybody. And we all need to continue to follow this. In addition, they have to have the prenatal care. This is a patient who is pregnant, as you can see, the baby here, and this position is called prone position. When people come in and they are really sick, we cannot oxygenate them no matter what we do. Before the intubation, we will try this prone position, that the person, the patient, lays down in a swimmer's position. The arm goes around just like swimmer and on their belly, and the idea is to improve the oxygenation. We have been doing it in our patients and respiratory failure patients for years, and it successfully improves the oxygen to a certain degree. We keep this prone position for 3 hours and flip them on supine or on their back for 9 hours, and once they get intubated, the same thing continues, but the intubation is worse because then we have to paralyze the body and sedate the body. So it's a terrible situation, and here is that example in one woman of prone positioning. So this is the physician. Her name is Lauren Westaffer. She is assistant professor of emergency medicine in UMass, and she's author of a book, The Short Coat, How I Worked Smarter. She was not getting pregnant, so she had fertility treatment for a long time. Finally, she got pregnant with her baby, and now she was during her pregnancy, she decided to go ahead and take the vaccine, and here you can see. So on December 11th, she got the vaccine and is doing well. And the another physician, this is Dr. Candice Cody. She is anesthesiologist and 38 weeks pregnant. And she suggested that you should have a conversation with your doctor, protect yourself and others. And after 24 hours of injection, the only thing that she said, that she was a little sore where the injection was given. It protects the mother and likely passes some immunity to the baby. Scientifically, it still needs to be proven, but this is what this anesthesiologist physician is saying. So, and these are their Twitter statements on the top of the slide. So what happened to those people who were in the trials? Did they get pregnant? Was there any pregnant people during the trials because they were men and women? Yes. The Pfizer had 23 participants who reported that they were pregnant. 12 of them were in the vaccine arm of the trial, and 11 were on the placebo or saline, if you will, arm of the trial. And only 2 had side effects. One had spontaneous abortion and the other had retained products of the conception, but they both were receiving the placebo and not the vaccine. In Moderna, 13 people reported that they were pregnant. 6 of them were receiving the vaccine and 7 were receiving the placebo. Out of that, they had the spontaneous abortion. 1 was lost to follow-up, and 1 decided to electively terminate the pregnancy, but all 3 of them were receiving placebo. So there is a difference of opinion for people considering to become pregnant in 2021, how you are going to decide what you want to do. We already know about the pharmaceutical companies are not including, there is no human data available, and there is no formal recommendation in the United States for the families if they are trying to be pregnant. In United States, the recommendation or the advocacy is that if you are already pregnant, consider getting vaccinated. And we talked about few benefits of that, or downside of not getting vaccinated. On the other hand, United Kingdom is different. They say women should be advised not to come forward for vaccination. That means don't get vaccinated if they may be pregnant or planning a pregnancy within 3 months of the first dose. So they outright reject the vaccination for the pregnant people. How about the breastfeeding? There is no data. Again, CDC recommends vaccine for the breastfeeding mothers, and especially if they are in the high-risk group, so that is the healthcare workers and certain health conditions if they have. Again, both these vaccines are messenger RNA type, and they are not supposed to pose a risk for the breastfeeding baby because the studies show that the vaccine contents were not found in the blood of the subjects in the studies, and therefore they are not likely to be secreted in the milk as well. How about children? The testing for children started in October 2020 as young as 12 years of age, and it's going to take several months before we will know if the vaccine will be successfully available for the children. If the results are good and safety profile is good, they will be enrolling younger children for that. Well, remember, this is not unusual. Mumps, measles, all the vaccines, as you know, polio, they are all given within a few months of the birth. So there's protocols. We all know that. So this is nothing unusual that is being considered and being researched. Moderna also began their study, and they are enrolling 12 years to 17 years of age, and they are going to track them for 1 year before they come up with their results. So it seems like that children younger than 12 is expected to start testing, not the vaccination, in early 2021, so which is about now this is happening. So there's a lot of hope. So what happens once individual is vaccinated? So let's say what was this my case, I'm vaccinated. There are many people on this webinar who have been vaccinated with both the dose. A week or two after the second dose, to allow for the immune system to kick in, we should be able to visit the grocery store or go to the post office, is still wearing the mask, is still washing hands, and is still maintaining the social distance. Would like to avoid the large groups and indoor gatherings because one can still be asymptomatic carrier and give the virus to people who are near you. So life in general shouldn't change very much after the individual vaccination. What if your group of people, friends and family is vaccinated? So everybody is vaccinated in your group of people. It's safe to socialize with them. This is what current thinking is for most of people, including indoors. If you are only with this group everybody is vaccinated. Having said that, large group are traveling. There's no way knowing that who in this large group is vaccinated, who is not. That will still remain risky and should not entertain that idea. People who are vaccinated, they can get together to have board game night or music or whatever, meeting, whether it's one-on-one meeting, but they still should refrain from flying on the vacation or going to a crowded place like movie theater. And the reason being that immunity is not an off and on switch. So when we talk about herd immunity, that 70-80% population has to be vaccinated, it's going to happen slowly. The dial has to crank up. So 10%, 20%, 30%, all the way to 80%. And we also don't know whether the herd immunity in the case of COVID-19 virus will be achieved at 60, 70 or 80%. Historically speaking, it could be less, it could be more, depending on so many factors. So if the community is below the herd immunity level, which we discussed, that what are some of the variables there, how much virus is still circulating in the population, and there is always, we should consider to be on the safer side, that there is a chance to get infected or reinfected. So is life going to be back to normal after second injection? Many people believe that life will be back to normal after they are vaccinated. No, not that fast. Not entirely the case. Vaccines are not 100% fail-proof. One can still get the disease. Thinking is that the disease may not be that intense. Risk of death may not be as intense, but risk is still there. Vaccination is just only one part of the big effort against the COVID-19 pandemic. And again, as I said, 70-80% people have to be vaccinated. Then only we'll talk about herd immunity. And if you are traveling and you are overseas traveler, then the herd immunity has to affect the entire world before you will be safe. So the trials that have been done, they only have been done and show the prevention and efficacy against the symptomatic disease. The trials were not designed to look at the impact of asymptomatic infection. So everything that we talk about asymptomatic infection is hypothetical and not supported by any data or research. So these are the photographs, really nostalgic photographs from our past and recent past, but we still cannot get there yet. So we just have to keep calm, deal with it, and wait for the time to come back again so that we can add to this album. We are going to face new normal, whether we like it or we don't. We have to wait to learn so many things before feeling comfortable doing the more high-risk activities. The stakes are just too high with this virus. This coming summer will be likely to be more open because of more vaccination. As of today, 7 million people have received the vaccination out of 22 million shots available. So you can see that how difficult it is to reach everybody and vaccinate. So it will take some time. Despite that, we should expect an uptick of cases and hospitalization in the next winter, because winter comes with the flu season, and we are just going to be at more risk. So it is very unlikely anytime soon that the life will look exactly like 2019 again. We will have to continue to wear masks during the flu season, even if we have achieved herd immunity, or in the crowded places. There will be more systems in place with all this sad experience with the pandemic to prevent the pandemic and its impact. There will be more tracking of the emerging infections now, because these infections just happen, and I'll show you a couple of slides which will really open our eyes that what happens with these infections, what we think and where they come from. And then of course there will be a lot of screening for international travel, etc. So everybody will be on their guard despite achieving the herd immunity and getting some control on this terrible pandemic. Some of the mysteries about COVID-19 are really, where did the virus originate? Everybody thought that it was Wuhan, China. Market was selling live animals. This has happened. Well, it turned out that 1/3 of the initial patient actually had nothing to do with that market. And now the scientists believe that the virus likely originated in the wild. It just so happened that there was a concentration of this virus in that market in China. There is also belief now and some evidence that in United States and Europe, this virus was circulating way before it was discovered in December 2019. WHO has also investigated that it seems like even in China itself, this virus was circulating prior to December 2019, before they discovered the first cases. Then we also don't know why some people get affected more than others. We don't have a good understanding of this. Initially, it was thought that the virus causes only the respiratory illness. No, it does not. It causes respiratory illness and cardiac and vasculitis and kidney and liver, septic shock. It causes hemodynamic and as well as the blood or disorders, blood clotting, bleeding. It causes so many problems that it covers the entire body and messes it up completely. So we really don't have any idea that why some people are affected that badly. Children tend to have less effect. Why? Because here in this cartoon, I liked it because there's a lot of science here, but they have few ACE receptors. These are the receptors. There's a lock and key mechanism where the virus gets attached to this receptor, angiotensin converting enzyme to receptor. So there's a lack of concentration in the children as opposed to adults. And there are many other differences, at least 5 are listed here. Therefore, children are likely to be slightly protected. We don't know why older people have high death rate, other than just because they are old and they may have comorbid conditions, but why they have to die so quickly with this virus, and of course the infection risk for different groups. So now this is, there are a lot of questions about this virus, and therefore when we talk about is life going to be the normal, probably not for a long period of time, unfortunately. Well, that's one. But is there some more trouble ahead? We know that in UK they found another mutant of the coronavirus, and they had a new lockdown and everything. In United States, there was a case, first case was discovered in Colorado, and then it spread to Southern California, and many areas now have it. It spreads faster than the common strain. It is believed that it is 52% more contagious than the original one. And it's just badness. And what happens is, so here's the picture of the original virus. It was supposed to be a GIF, Jiffy to move, but it's not. Never mind. But here is the first mutant, and it is opening up here. If there are two mutants, it's color coded, so two more colors are added to this, and there are three. So red is added here. So there is three, and actually the new mutant has 5 of them. So clearly it's a different problem. The current vaccine is designed with the what we call is the nucleoproteins. 1270 nucleoproteins are used in the current vaccine. The mutation is only on the 9 spots, and recent knowledge that we have as of today, and Dr. Fauci again mentioned it today, that the current vaccine does cover this mutant strain. So unless it changes its behavior and we don't catch it, it can definitely cause more trouble, and that will not be really nice. So can we predict the end of the pandemic? Well, it's going to take years to vaccinate most of the world population. It's not going to be easy to get that herd immunity that we talked about. I just said that 22 million vaccines doses are available in the United States. As of today, only 7 million were be able to given. There are people who just don't believe in vaccine for whatever their belief system is. So there is a group of people, maybe 30%, that will not receive the vaccine. Vaccine itself, and those 70% will not give the 100% protection that we know, unless it continues to improve on itself. Even when vaccinated, you can still go ahead, be a symptomatic carrier, and spread the virus. And virus could mutate, and it can become less deadly or less infectious, or it could also become more deadly and more infectious. So there are all these odds which are completely out of control at this point. So we really don't know with this vaccine. This is the end of the beginning or beginning of the end. But I want to thank you for listening carefully to my webinar today. And have a nice day. Please consider vaccination for yourself. It will be not only helping you, but it will help and protect the family and our communities. Thank you so much.